In this episode, we're going to discuss something a little bit more serious. We're going to get into the book of Revelations and the things that are going on right now in this world. Let's jump into that. All right, as you heard from the intro, I want to discuss the book of Revelations, more so what's going on in the world right now and how it relates to the things that are being said in that book. So I know there's a lot of people that are conspiracy theories out there. I think the majority of my following are conspiracy theorists. They share the same conspiracies I do, or they share the same ideas, ideologies, things of that nature. It would make sense, it makes sense if you follow the podcast to kind of be on board with some of the things I say. I meet people who don't agree with the way I think and don't agree with the way I am, and I haven't had really any issue with those people other than, just that we're not for each other. You know what I mean? So if you're a genuine person, regardless of your theories, sometimes people can look past that, and sometimes people will still, in a sense, mess around with you or mess with you because they're like, you know what, we might not agree on this, but this is a genuine dude. And if you ask the majority of people around me, people who really actually, if you ask every single person around me that actually knows me, they'll tell you how genuine of a person I am. That's always been one of my biggest compliments. One of the things I've always tried to present myself as authentic. That when someone tells me that that's what I am, that's one of my greatest, to me, that's such a great compliment because that's who I try to be. I try to be my authentic self. And I try to be as transparent as I need to be. There's things that you should always keep, private and such. But as far as transparency, I always try to be a very transparent person. There's going to be people out there that don't agree with what you think, don't agree with who you are, don't agree with anything like that, and they're going to bite you back. They're going to bite back at your ideas, and you're probably not going to get along with that person. And I think that is the reason why we are seeing such a liberal movement right now. There are people who have those liberal ideas for sure. I'm not saying there's not. But then I also think that there's a populace out there. There's a people out there who don't know where they fit or have always been afraid to go against the grain. That's why I think you start to see it a lot with a lot of the youth and young people coming up, in high school and out of high school, because it's one of those scary things, you don't know where you fit in. You don't want to be different, even though you're told to. Some people are told to be the same. Some people are told to be different, but we know that the people who are different are the ones that the history books remember, correct? And, I've always strived to be different in the sense of I don't need to go out and do anything crazy. That's not who I am. I'm just going to be me. And, again, that nowadays seems to not be such a genuine attribute or a genuine thing for people. So that sets me apart. But people tend to want to go with what the fad is or what's going on in the world at the moment. And sometimes they'll dive right in, and religious people do this too. I'm not bashing liberal people or non-religious people, because religious people do this as well. Pastor will say something and that's Bible. You know what I'm saying? So instead of doing your own research, you just believe it. And I've said this, like, always do your own research. You should always double check and triple check whatever is being told to you or being taught to you, just to make sure that you're being fed the right information, or it is being translated properly, and you're not interpreting it in a different way. And so as a whole, as I mentioned, there are a lot of people that will definitely go with what's popular, I guess, just because they don't want to go against the grain. They don't want to stand out, and they don't want to argue. That's what it is with a lot of people. They don't want to argue. You do have people out there who will argue. And it reminds me of when I was a kid. You had this group of individuals who were more of like a gang. Were a gang, but when they were by themselves, they were very quiet. You look down, they wouldn't say anything. But when they were in a group, they were the loudest they could be. And that's kind of what I feel like now when you get someone who is a shy liberal. They're open to a discussion. They're open to any ideas because they're not confrontational, right? But then you get them in a group, and all of a sudden they're spewing out, and they're loud, and they're saying everything else that you're hearing pretty much from the world today. And I feel like that is why we have the movement that we're in. But I also do believe that that is a reason why we are in the state that we are as well. For people who are religious, you guys understand that this was prophesied, that this was going to happen, that we were going to, that there was harbingers for people who follow Jonathan Cahn. There have been harbingers, which are signs that are pretty much saying what's to come, or God's like last, like, turn back, come back to me, or these things are going to happen. And there have been plenty of those things that have happened, from 9/11 to the collapse of the economy in 2008, or the market, in 2008, to what we're, saying that's worse than the Great Depression and COVID, all these things. And we're not turning back to God. We're turning away from God. And that's one of those scary things that we as a society are being fed by the outside world, is that we're pretty much a godless nation, and we don't need God to survive. There's even things out there that say we can be our own gods. And so I remember when my little brother was younger, he would come to me with these ideas. And, now obviously he understands it, but he would come to me with these ideas of, how we can be our own gods and this and that. And he didn't even understand what he was saying. He grew up in the church as well, but he didn't understand what he was saying, because the way that the world fed it to the youth, it made a lot of sense to him. It made it made a lot of sense in the ways of, if we create our own happiness, or we take full advantage of this life, we are in control. Therefore, we are our own gods, and we want to be in control of our own lives. Everybody does, but I think that's also a problem with a lot of people, is that they feel I'm the only one that can control my life, when they don't understand that God is actually working behind closed doors, and he's always been working behind closed doors. We were in service the other day, and the pastor said a good thing. Pastor Skip said a good thing, which I have said this before. I've seen this before, and I've agreed with it. And he said that he came across someone, or he saw something, but the discussion was that God doesn't answer all prayers. And he's like, no, God does answer all prayers if you really listen. If you pray for a BMW and you don't get a BMW, well, the answer was no. Your prayer was answered. Just because it wasn't a yes doesn't mean that your prayer wasn't answered. God does answer the prayers. Or it could be a not right now, but you need to have that relationship with him in order to understand, is it something that I'm waiting for? Is it something that's just not going to happen? But at the same time, you need to have faith that regardless of what that answer is going to be, God is in control, and God knows what's best for us, right? As we're kids, because he is our father, as we're children, we rely on our parents to tell us what is best for us, to instill our morals and our compass. And that is the struggle now with a lot of these younger parents, that they're allowing the kids at such a young age to take the reins and decide for themselves. And that's just a recipe for disaster. I can tell you right now, I grew up in a pretty rough neighborhood. And in that neighborhood, you had people who were in the streets, as was I, but the good thing is I had a family that really cared about me, and that always brought me back home. You know what I'm saying? But like, people who are just in the streets, running the streets and learning that street life, they raise themselves, but they're not going to raise themselves with the same way that your parents should or would raise you if you had those loving parents, or you had the parents who were available, because some of those people were victims of circumstance. They were from broken homes, so their parents were working all the time, and they were just trying to do their best to provide. So it's not one of those things where they also just chose. I don't want to just put it out there. It is also one of those unfortunate things where the parents did actually care, but they just had to work 2-3 jobs. And, it's unfortunate because the children suffer when that happens, and it's life, but it's all part of it. It sucks. I get it, but we all have our own path, and we just have to have faith that God's going to work it all out. So we don't like to feel, as people out there don't like to feel like there's someone else in control. And I think that's another reason why people shy away from God. They'll shy away from God because they'll feel as though, I don't want to give that control to somebody, or I don't want that person to be in control, because he doesn't answer prayers, or he doesn't answer my prayers, when again, we know the answer to that. Or because I'm my own God, I control my life, and there's no one else going to tell me different. So we are in that point in our lives, or that fad or that time where you do you, boo boo kind of thing, and so people really are diving into that and are not open to traditional ways of, the way we've grown up with God being in control, the traditional families and things of that nature, roles for the male and for the wife and the husband. And you have all these silly arguments that are out there about the datings and everything like that. And I know I'm getting sidetracked. I apologize. I just have to lay out this big thing because at the end of the day, we're turning away from God. We're almost like a godless society. And that was one of the harbingers that I referenced before, was God was giving these signs saying, come back, turn to me, do not turn away, or else bad things are going to happen. Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. Those two cities were destroyed after Abraham had fought to liberate those cities. They got destroyed. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, one person is doing what they can to save a city, but if a city's not willing to save themselves, then, God ultimately punished the city and destroyed both of them because they turned away. Israel was casted out of their own homeland because of how far away they got from God. And you hear Babylon referred to not only in the Bible, but in movies, and we know it as a culture reference for a powerful nation. And we I believe are Babylon. And we are just like Babylon's history is comes a time where Babylon falls. And I feel like we're in that, we're heading in that direction. We're in it, but in God's time, because he has warned us, because he loves us, to turn back, and we haven't done that. We've gotten further away from him. Everything that's going on now with, as I started the podcast with liberal thinking and such, is everything is set up to push us further away from God. Yeah, we want to believe in love, peace, and everything for all, but at the same time, there are rules, there have been rules, and you can choose to abide by them or not, but we have never been in a time more where people are not okay with just, oh, those are rules, I don't follow, whatever. Now we're in a time where it's like, those rules, I don't believe in them, so they need to change. And there's a lot of people behind that exact movement of, I don't like the rules, so they need to change. And they're changing it. The society's changing it. The world are changing it. And that's what's creating this godless society. We're turning away from our morals, where our morals are being changed because the youth has been affected. So the youth that's growing up now are the ones that are going to be instilling this in their children. And that's a dangerous path, because some of those parents believe that their children are old enough to make their own decisions under the age of 10. And it becomes a difficult, I think it's just a path for a difficult life. And it's been a difficult argument and conversation for people to have, because, obviously we have driver's license at certain ages, we have alcohol and tobacco at certain ages because we're protecting children, but yet then we have a law that says that, they can take these things, these pills and stuff at school without consent of the parents and at such a young age. And so it's completely out of whack to where we got to the point where we're allowed to have others father or mother or teach our kids how to things of life. And that is responsibility in some schools have been taken away from parents without parents' knowledge. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that, but that's the society that we're in. People are too afraid to go against the grain. So they go with what is viral, what is popular. And you have teachers who are coming out and doing this. You have teachers who are disclosing way more information than they need to with their students. And you have the arguments of the flag. You have the arguments of all the flags that hang up. You can't even hang an American flag anywhere on your persons. If you're in school, if you have one in your truck or something, you can't hang it up. They make you remove it in a lot of states, counties, things of that nature, because it is now, if you have an American flag, it's such a Republican thing to do and a conservative thing to do that you get categorized as. That's the craziest thing. But you're allowed to have the trans and the pride flag and all these other things because that's what the fad is right now. That's where we live in a liberal society, and that's where the liberal society, that's where it sides with right now, is that. So that's okay. So you have these things that are contributing to our society going away from God. If you're being told at every single turn, every single corner that the way of a liberal is correct and this is all appropriate and is okay and everything, you start to believe that. It's hard not to believe that. That's why I fear for our children. They're under attack, and they're under constant attack. They're under attack more than we were as kids, for anyone who's a millennial or older. Because if you really, really think about it, we had your typical dilemmas growing up as kids, right? We had, where are we going to fit in? What group are we with? Are we popular? Are we not? Are we bullies? Are we not? Are we going to get bullied? Are we going to stand up for ourselves? Are we good at sports? Are we not? Am I going to break out in acne? Am I not? Things of that. Those are the things that as kids, my clothes match. Do I have new clothes? And the basic things that a lot of kids grew up with, that a lot of people are familiar with, the problems that we had as kids. But now it's acne, body shaming, right? Like it's just all these, my feelings. Growing up, I felt as though we had to go through a lot of these things just so we can understand how to combat, how to grow, how to accustom ourselves to this ridicule and just kind of keep on our stride without letting nothing interfere. And we had to build up tolerance. We had to build up a resistance to all this stuff. But the only way you do that is to go through it. And so now you don't have these people, you don't have people who go through it. So everything immediately is a trigger and everything immediately is a problem. I still see it with people really close to me where I'll say something and immediate, it's a defense mechanism. It's the criticism cannot be taken. And that's because that's the society that we live in. It's, oh, you're mean. I don't like that. Like, you can't do that. And it's like, well, the truth is not mean nor nice. It is the truth. It is a fact. Take the truth. Oh man, I'm doing this. Okay, I got to stop. Or, oh man, that's what happened. Oh, I gotta make sure I rewind that and not try to do that again, or whatever the case may be. But the truth is fact. And so people are just so offended nowadays that you have all this stuff. So again, I reference all this because it is everything contributing to the downfall of our society, the downfall of our youth and the next generation. And that's why you have the argument of how are we going to defend ourselves against these more tough and strong nations, because we're going to start to build an army full of people who cannot handle any kind of conflict or things of that nature. And you see it. You see people posting TikToks about it, where there's one that went viral with a guy who was like, "You expect to give me a gun?" Like, no. How are you? No, like it was people like that should have never been in the military. Therefore, they were never going to be in the military. But it was always people from the other side of that spectrum that were going to defend this country and sign up to battle, to fight. And we always had that. And I don't see a lot of that now. I don't see people in that sense that there's enough people that will fill the people that are leaving, the people who are in active duty right now, who are going to be, retiring and things of that nature, that we're going to be replacing them with compatible or equal kind of talent, mindset, all that stuff. It's a different thing, man. I had a guy come back from basic training, and he said that they had different barracks. They had, I don't remember if I think it was a card. You pull out a card when you feel offended, and then they all of a sudden have to stop being mean to you, and they have to set you aside and explain to you why they were yelling, like in a nice manner. Like, this is ridiculous. Again, it's the downfall. It contributes to the downfall of our society. Some of us are meant for war and some of us are not. But to make everyone, kind of sensitive is dangerous to our nation and our nation's future. And I mentioned the book of Revelations because, for people out there who don't know, I actually want to find the video because this video is short and explains everything. Let me see if I can find it. I think it was on my YouTube, but it explains the things that it talks about in the Bible as far as like the bowls that are going to be happening, the trumpets and the signs and things of that nature. So let me pull it up. I would say I had it under shorts. Let's see. I don't like that it doesn't do it in order. You can save them. See, I saved them in shorts and it didn't save at all. Nothing saved at all. So now I'm going to have to go back into my history just to be able to pull up one video of the guy so I can pull up all these other videos. Like, I don't like that you have to do that. No, we're not going to go there. All right, ready? First bowl.
See, when the very first bowl is poured out on the earth, all those who have taken the mark of the beast will break out in these disgusting sores, while those who did not take the mark have to endure their absolutely foul smell. Now, when this second angel pours out this second bowl, 100% of the sea will turn into this dark red blood. Every creature in the water, big or small, will simply die, leaving the oceans entirely useless. Now, this leads us to the third bowl. While people think it cannot possibly get any worse, suddenly, all the fresh water and all the springs and all the rivers will also turn into blood, making water more valuable than diamonds. And then the fourth bowl gets poured, and the sun absolutely scorches the earth. Temperatures become inhospitable without anywhere to hide. In those days, people will blaspheme the name of God, even though He is the one who controls these plagues. But then comes the fifth bowl, which brings utter darkness to the kingdom of Satan. But this only leads to more anger, blasphemy, and rebellion. Now, when the sixth bowl gets poured out, when the sixth bowl gets poured out, the river Euphrates will completely dry up, making way for the kings of the east. These demons will deceive the whole world into gathering up for a great battle. They will join together to build this massive army to fight against God. And interestingly, these demons are described to look like frogs, kind of like an alien. But at the very last bowl, this mighty earthquake occurs, greater than anything the earth has seen before. Every city and every nation will simply disintegrate, and at this time, a great hail from heaven will fall upon a already destroyed earth. But the craziest part about all of this is that people will still not repent. They will still worship the beast, even as they are brought to their knees. So let this be a warning to anybody who hears the words of this prophecy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the book of Revelation.
So that's the bowls, right? And then you obviously have the trumpets, and the trumpets or the seals. Let's talk about the seals, actually.
As the very first seal is opened, this mighty white horse with a mysterious rider appears right before him. This rider held a bow and he had a crown, and he went out with only one goal in mind: to conquer. See, immediately after this, Jesus opens the second seal, and this fiery red horse appears. Its rider had a great sword, and he was granted to take peace from the whole world. And now Jesus opens the third seal. A black horse, as dark as night, comes forth. This rider had a scale in hand, and as he rides out, poverty and famine will grip the world. Prices of very basic things like wheat become unaffordable because this rider brings utter economic collapse. Now, the fourth seal would bring out this pale horse. Its rider was named Death, and he was accompanied by Hades. He was given power over a fourth of the earth to kill through sword, famine, plagues, and wild beasts, which leads us to the fifth seal. John sees all the souls of the martyrs. They are patiently waiting for God. The apocalypse will begin at the sound of a trumpet.
See, okay, those are the seals.
John the Apostle.
Those are the seals. Okay, they don't go further than that in the seals. But my point for bringing those up, for the people who don't understand, like when they first wrote that book of Revelations, you had people who were trying to decipher what exactly that could mean, because the horses, and the color of the horses are, metaphors for what's to come. And it was hard for them to tell. And one, they say that two witnesses will come, and they will be speaking the name of God in Israel, and then they will get executed for the world to see. Back in the day, you look at that and you say, okay, how is that possible? How is the entire world going to see these two witnesses get executed? And so it just didn't make a lot of sense. And then as the time has gone on, it makes a lot of sense. When I was growing up, I thought, oh, it's going to be on TV. And then now it's like, man, it's actually going to be on YouTube, TV, anything you can stream on, anything you can think of. It's in our phone. It's in our phones. Everything is in our pocket. And so there's that, there's definitely a fear for people who aren't living correctly or properly. But then there's also the people who just have no clue. They have no clue. They don't care, and they don't fear it. And that was the plan. That's always been the plan. Like, what would be, if you were the devil, what would be your goal? Your goal would be convince people that God doesn't exist, right? Like, if you can do that, you win. And then the next thing to do is to convince people you do not exist, because then there is no good and evil. It's just, do you, boo-boo, right? So we're in that society, and that's kind of like where we're at. And the drying up of the seas and things of that nature, we're seeing that. We're seeing that with global warming. The government has laid out that agenda for a while now. And speaking of agendas, I'm going to play another video for you guys to see, but laid that out now to let you know that the world is warming up. The world is warming up. Things are going to happen. And they're just laying a platform. 1940, whatever it was, when Roswell crashed, right? They covered it up. And then now they're saying, okay, now we can figure out a way that we can utilize this information to use it to our benefit. So now the alien agenda is now here. Oh, aliens are real. And I've said this for years. I've said this early on in this podcast, where I've always felt they were going to fake an alien invasion in order to fake the rapture. Because again, if the rapture is real, that means God, therefore God is real. And we know the Bible's real. And so they can't have that. They can't have the truth in the end, because then people start turning to God. And, it's going to be a difficult thing to do in those times, but I don't deny that people are going to be, that there are going to be people that are going to be reaching out during that time, or going to be a culture shock to them when that happens. Because I think a lot of people are going to snap, but then a lot of people are just going to be so happy in their ways that they're still going to praise the beast, is what they says in the Bible. They're still going to praise the beast. And that's what we do now. Look at another thing that's contributing to the downfall of society is OnlyFans. If you think of what OnlyFans is a platform where it allows more individuals, male and female, to jump into the sex trade or the porn industry without shame. Before, if you did porn, oh my gosh, I couldn't tell my parents. It was a shameful thing, right? Like it wasn't something that you went out and did, and you had to actually go out and do it. So I'm guessing growing up, there were a lot of people who were 95% of the way there. And the last step was maybe walking into that door of some porn studio, and then they just couldn't do it, right? But now all you got to do is turn that camera on, record on your phone, and upload it, and it's gone. And once it's on the internet, it's up there, so it's a lot more easier. And they've made that. They've purposely done it that way to destroy the youth, to corrupt men, to corrupt the population, and to be distracted. These are all distractions to get you to fear, to get you to forget about God and forget about the things that are to come. And they're doing a great job of it. Global warming, they laid it out. They're laying it out with the OnlyFans stuff, the music industry. Don't even get me started with Doja Cat and Sam Smith and all these satanic stuff that they're doing over there. More stories are coming out about P. Diddy. Stories are coming out even about Will Smith, and there's just all these things that are contributing to where we're heading, to the demonic or satanic agenda. We have front row seats to it, and a lot of us don't even know what's going on. And the economic collapse is another thing that I mentioned. We've seen it a couple times, but we know that there is something bigger to come. There was some kind of economical crash that's bigger to come. In the book of Revelations, it says that a week's worth of work will buy you a loaf of bread. Again, I thought that was very literal growing up. Oh man, bread is going to cost so much. I think it's a metaphor now for how expensive things are going to get. And if you see inflation is only going further, higher and higher up, there's certain things that Democratic presidents bring that are a given, and there's certain things that Republican presidents bring that are given. One thing under a Republican president is that gas prices are going to be low, and vice versa with the Democrat. You knew that gas prices are going to be high. And now we're starting to see it within our meals. Everything is so expensive. And not just that, but everything is inflated. The inflation is ridiculous now. And how high inflation is ridiculous. So we're starting to see that, and it's just ultimately going to set up for a big crash. I mean, these prices are getting out of control. People are going to be forced out of their homes. People are going to be forced into poverty, and it's a scary thing. Therefore, I say, if you're afraid of the things to come, turn to God, turn to Jesus, give your life up, and make sure you're ready for the time that the rapture comes, and you don't have to see any of it. Granted, we will be in it for 3.5 years, but then the rapture happens. But I mean, you don't have to stay for the worst of the worst. So now that we laid that out, I want you guys to hear this video that talks about what I think is going on right now.
This is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world. It is the inventory and control plan of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that, well, sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into concentrated city centers and clearing them out of the rural areas. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. Because when systems don't meet, when they're out of balance or not in sync with one another, they can't be controlled centrally. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from the...
I mean, we've heard that with the New World Order. Bush Sr. said it. You know, I think that was the first time publicly it was said. And then conspiracy theorists ran with it because... I couldn't actually tell you why at the time they ran with it. You know, you become the face of it as a conspiracy theorist. Therefore, people don't take you serious. Like, look at all the people when they came out and talked about aliens, how people didn't take them serious, looked at them as conspiracy theorists and whatnot. And then they turned out to be true. Bob Lazar, I remember feeling so bad for him because he never got, we apologize. You were right. Nothing. His life was destroyed. He never profited off of his interviews or his reveal of what was going on and his background. And they actually tried to bury him. They tried to bury him and all these things. And he just lives quietly. He never wanted anything other than them knowing what was, what's going on. Kind of like, is it Jon Snow? Is that, no, not Jon Snow. That's, what's the Snowden? Edward Snowden. Just like Edward Snowden, when at first he didn't feel anything that was right. Big Brother watching, so he reported it. People don't care. I couldn't tell you if he's profiting off of it now. I could just tell you that initially the intentions were just to let the public know what was going on, and he did that. What his intentions were afterwards, we don't know. But Bob Lazar, I feel bad for because he stayed true to his lifestyle of not wanting to be in the limelight and just exposing these things at the right moments and then going and hiding because he didn't want anything other than the truth being out there. And so you put conspiracy in front of it and people will be skeptical of it or will look at those people as crazy. And that's another thing you can slap on the stuff that's going on. But there are things going on behind closed door. I'm not saying I fully agree with Agenda 21, but you're telling me that that's not possible. If you look at Antarctica, we already know that 179 or 234 or whatever it was nations agreed to some kind of treaty and truce in that area where they all have a research base. They're all doing research down there and there's peaceful. There's no war down there. And you're telling me they can all come together for that, but can't come together for other things? There's something going on over there. So it just goes to show you that there are things, they can come together with certain things. Is this one of them? It could possibly be. I mean, I agree that if you have people in a centrally located area, they're more easily controllable. And these are things that I think we're going to start to see soon. I wouldn't put it past the government or the people pulling the strings to bring that next. But you definitely collapse the economy and you make it harder for people to live on their own. And you make them more dependent on government. I mean, look at those stimulus checks. We just kept getting more and more in debt. People just kept putting them in their pockets. People were just happy getting stimulus checks. I got a new kitchen table. I got a new television. I got a new this, A, B, and C. It didn't matter. People were just taking it without question, without like, oh, what's going to happen when, no, now it's like, oh, I want that. Can we get that again? Can we get that again? And they're pushing for more stimuluses. It's like, it's insane. People got so accustomed to it. It's socialism. That's what that is you can get paid to not work, get paid as much as the other person to not work. So why would you work? And so many people during that time, we're still seeing it where you haven't come back from it. Texas, I have a business in Texas. In Texas, the gentleman was telling me that they came out of it, but they are also in it too. But because they're more of a conservative state, they were able to come out of it. And what I mean by come out of it is the workforce being ready to work again and being able to draw in good individuals for work again. Here in New Mexico, we're still seeing it where people don't want to work. So we're still seeing those effects because people are reliant on the government and the government is helping them out. So it's those things that will destroy a nation. It's those things that will corrupt a congregation, a community. And that's what we are. We're just one big community, the world, and we're just being corrupted with all of this stuff. And it's a scary time. It's scary to live through. It's scary to see that there's no repercussions because religion is all about free will. You have the choice. So you're not going to see any kind of consequences for not following God's law other than the day of judgment. That's why I believe now more than ever that Christianity is the one true religion because it is the most ridiculed in the world. Right now, we're seeing what's going on with the Jewish people. And I think it's so ridiculous because people, if they just understood history, you don't even have to go biblical history. You can just go into history and understand that Jewish people were before the name Palestine even came in. I think they lived in that land. They were indigenous to that land for 2,100 years. 2,100 years, Israelites lived in that land before the words Palestine came into effect or anything. And then now you're saying that the Israelites are the evil people because they're attacking the Palestine and the Gaza Strip, and it's ridiculous. We're backwards on that. Instead of looking at it and saying, well, these guys are they're cowards, and they're hiding under schools and hospitals and things of that, and they're daring them to attack. At the same time, the stories that don't come out is how Israel, prior to attacking, informed the people there that they would be attacking, and they gave them a time. We'll attack in, let's say, 48 hours. I don't remember what it was. And they said, please get out through the south, exit through the south. We're going to attack. And they warned the people, but that, you don't hear about that. You don't hear about them warning the people to leave. And then you don't hear about, now you are, but at the time you didn't hear about how Hamas is saying you have to stand with Palestine. So they're not letting anyone. I think it was like 179,000 people were held at the border and not allowed to leave because they want them to stand with their cause. It's insane that they're dragging these people, but yet Hamas are the good guys, and they're not labeled as a terrorist organization, and Israel is being listed as the bad guys. That part doesn't surprise me. Because that was prophesied that was going to happen. But to ridicule Jewish people like that is so insane. And there's a history behind the truth of that land and everything. You can go and read it for yourself. It doesn't have to be biblical. You can read it and in other literatures and texts. But just do your research. That's what I mean. You follow causes without knowing backgrounds. You are quick to... it's ridiculous. New Mexico all of a sudden has become a very peaceful protest state. And I saw on social media that they had a protest a couple weeks back for the Palestinians and how Israel needed to be pretty much stopped. And it's like all I saw was these people following blindly without knowing the truth. And that's where we are. It's easier for us to go with everybody else's opinion than it is to go against the grain. People out there who are religious but are maybe nervous or scared of what's going on, I mean, just stick with God. Don't fall into the temptations of earth, of this world, because they're going to get greater and greater. So you got to be more centered and more bound in your relationship with God in order to withstand that. So that's the advice I give the people out there, that if you are searching or seeking, find a good Christian church. Christian fellowship was good for me growing up. Calvary Chapel is another good church. You have Sagebrush, you have all these places you can go and just speak with someone there, and they'll be more than happy to pray over you and to set up a time to get you baptized if that's what you want to do, answer any questions you may have, and really just give your heart some peace with everything that's going on. Because what you guys need to understand is the Bible is a book of God's love to us, and the book of Revelation is actually the story of how Jesus takes back his kingdom. And so it's actually supposed to be a happy story. So if you're on the right side, you're rejoicing. But if you're on the wrong side, you're nervous. You got a little fire under your feet, or you're so far gone that you don't even know what's going on. And so I just caution people to wake up, really read what is being advertised to us, but read between the lines. Do your research. Anything that's we're being given, don't just immediately digest, but take your time to find out what exactly you want to take as fact and what you can take as opinions, and just stay strong. I mean, I'm here to answer any questions you may have. You can always reach out to me at _ Kid Culture or Kid Culture _ at Instagram. Twitter is Culture Punch Podcast. And yeah, I mean, just reach out to me there. If you have any questions, any bigger questions, I would say would be good to go to your local church and ask around there. But, I pray for the world right now, and I pray for anyone who is seeking answers, that you find those answers and you find them in God. And so, appreciate you guys tuning in. I know it's been a while. We are still moving, but we are finally in our new home, and hence the reason why I took so long to record another podcast. But I've just been seeing these things and sitting on them, and I actually have a couple of ideas for podcasts moving forward. One in general that I think you guys are going to want to tune into. I have a friend of mine who's an atheist that I'd love to get on, and we've talked about him coming on, and that's one of those conversations that I really look forward to having, because it's going to get me a chance to sit across an atheist and just have a conversation about why they believe what they believe, and what they're grounded in, and what they're firm in, and where their morals lie. And this is like I said, a friend of mine. It's one of those things I mentioned earlier in the podcast where we don't necessarily agree on our stances with religion and things of that nature, but he sees how genuine of a person I am. He can overlook it, and not to take any credit away from him, because he is a genuine and solid dude as well. And so I cherish that friendship, and I'm glad that we've been able to stay friends through so many things that have gone on in between, from career changes, relationship changes, to just all these things that we've been able to always find a way to come back together and just, like pick up where things left off. And so that's always good friendships. And so I look forward to that one. I also have some other ideas where I can get people on the podcast to possibly even talk about some tarot card stuff and witchcraft stuff. For people who are interested in that, I think it'd be interesting to have a conversation with someone and see what they believe, and the art of that is, and what they feel when they do that. So the good thing is I had a pastor who used to dabble in that stuff, and he said he got the answers or whatever. He had the communication, but every time he left doing one of those readings or anything with witchcraft, he left more and more empty, until he finally just had nothing left, and then wanted to see what the gospel was all about. And then, Jesus filled up his cup. So to have an example like that, it has been great, and so it's good to see that people can come from one life to another and really just be touched by God and really look out what's going on. So God is also warning and speaking to a lot of these people. He's revealing, I shouldn't say warning, he's revealing himself to a lot of the Palestinians and people in the Middle East and in that area. So look at the testimonies that are out there about people who are seeing God. I've seen countless videos of people who were Muslim or Islamic, and they said they just come to tears because they're like, I heard a voice. He said, I forgive you. And they just start crying. They immediately know it's Jesus. It's just different. And they say that was the moment that changed their life. And no one is that powerful or it can touch you that much other than Jesus. So really encourage you guys to go look at that. Do your research and everything. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Culture Punch podcast. Look forward to talking to you guys again. Don't have any updates on when that will be. Again, we're still moving, but whenever I do get moments and chances, I will go ahead and record and I will promote it on my social media so you guys know when I'll be releasing a new episode. Till then, I appreciate you guys. Peace.